Tonight's shir Torah is sponsored by Esther Weber in memory of her father-in-law Avram Weather Alter Avram ben Elkanah. Olav Shalom, 21st of Adar, and the Yurtzai plaque is Max Davidov Yechiel Michal ben Gedalia. The Beis Yosef in the beginning of Siman Reish Sadi, so short Siman in Siman Reish Sadi, he quotes the Medrash Tanchuma that says that this is an unusual parsha. In the beginning, how it starts off Vayakel, because there's a gathering. What's this gathering for? Medrash explains that everyone should gather together to learn Torah on Shabbos. That's where this comes from. There's a tremendous amount to elaborate on this short but incredibly significant siman in Hilchos Shabbos, both not so much from a halachic ramification, but more hashkafic in how we should accustom ourselves on Shabbos. The essence of Shabbos, this is really the heart, I would argue, in terms of the importance. First off, there's a common misconception among many people. In fact, just a few days ago, someone told me that someone came up to him and said that Shabbos is a time for eating and spending time with the family, and you shouldn't be learning Torah. Well, that needs a tremendous amount of elaboration, and in order to properly elaborate on that, a tremendous amount of research really needs to be done as well. What exactly should be the split? What should be the breakdown if you have a pie chart? So how much percent should be allocated to each activity is a very important question to address. First, let's just start. There's a beautiful story that the Dubna Maggid says about an individual who went traveling for business, and there was no communication back then, and he hasn't heard from his family in some time, and every time someone would come to the faraway place, he would inquire, do you know, and then he found someone. He found an ani who was collecting, and he said, I recognize you from my hometown. And he said, please tell me about what's going on over here with my family. He said it was a very long trip. He said, how much? I don't have time. It's a long trip. How much do you make a day? He said the time. He said, I'll double whatever you give. He said, okay, but I'm very tired. Let me take a quick rest. He takes a quick rest. He wakes up. He said, I'm famished. I haven't eaten in a long time. Let me. And then after he eats, he gets, when you eat a lot, you get tired again. He gets tired. He says, I paid for your activities, and here you are. All you're doing is eating and sleeping. That's not the point. So the Dubna Maggid explains that Hashem gives us a beautiful gift that we don't have to work on Shabbos at all. We could just dedicate ourselves to what needs to be done. During the week, people are busy. People are busy earning money with other activities. Shabbos is a time that we could utilize. That's how the Dubna Maggid starts us off. Once we're talking about already napping, just go into a side discussion, which a lot of people don't know that this exists. There is a concept of taking a nap before Shabbos, an Eriv Shabbos nap. Everyone highlights the nap on Shabbos, which we'll come back to, that has legitimate sources also. But there's a tremendous importance with the Eriv Shabbos nap. Many Svarim talk about this at a length. There's an idea of just like how we physically prepare for Shabbos with all of the preparations, etc., which we know what that entails, Siman Reish Nun and many other halachas, Siman Reish Samach Beis. So too, there's an idea of spiritually preparing, and that's the nap. When we nap properly, so that will help us in terms of Shabbos, davening, the Suda, the Zmiros, the Divrei Torah. And it's a tremendous idea and tremendous importance. There's a story once where the kids, they went to the yeshiva and everyone was asked to imitate what their father was like at the table. So one kid comes in and says, this is what my Shabbos Suda is. So it's something to think about. It's a Suda is a very important thing. There's a very interesting idea that I saw Rav Harfinis brings down in his Shalos and Shuvas Nishma Shabbos. Ein Kiddush Elba Makom Suda means that the Kiddush has to be in the place where you're going to eat, right? There's a lot of halachas about that, as we know from Hilchos Kiddush in Siman Reish Ayin Gimel over there. But on a deeper level, this could mean Ein Kiddush, Kedusha, holiness is only in the place where the Suda is going to be the meal. Meals in general have tremendous significance in our religion. And because our religion is very unique, we believe in the physical, but it has to be in the right time of place. And at the meal, that's a time to really inject that holiness within everyone else who's there through preparing nice ideas to say that are shava l'chol nefesh, that's good for everyone, through proper zmiros, etc. So that's a very important idea. They talk about even just lying down 10 minutes, half an hour, even if you don't fall asleep, just to rest, you'll go in to Shabbos calmer. If someone, to begin with, isn't planning on having Torah's miras at the Suda and isn't really planning to utilize Shabbos for its holiness, so then obviously the snap is useless for him. We're talking about someone who's going to utilize and bask in the holiness of Shabbos, then this nap is going to be useful. That's another thing, important point, the Eriv Shabbos nap. Uh, just lastly on this, the Moon Rebbe, he says that this mitzvah of napping Erev Shabbos is so important that he wonders why it's not one of the Ten Commandments. That's what he said. I wouldn't say it if I didn't. It's the Oitzer Halachos quotes. It's in Siman Reish Nun in footnote 33, quoting the Divrei Torah. Okay, and Chelik Tes Os Yugimel. It's a big statement. Let's talk about napping on Shabbos. The Torah in Siman Reish Adi discusses about napping on Shabbos. Someone who regularly naps, he should nap on Shabbos. So it's implied from here that if a person doesn't consistently nap, that he shouldn't nap on Shabbos. And the Ramah quotes this Torah, and the Oz Hadar Mishnah Berurah says only someone who cannot learn Torah without napping should nap. The Eli Rabba says, don't sleep too much because it will be Bittul Torah. Shabbos stands for Shena Bittul Torah. It also stands for Shena B'Shabbos Tanakh. But it could, if a person's going to nap too much, like the fellow in our story before, that could be a problem. Seder Hayom says if the sleep grabbed the person, he should nap, but not a lot. It's a well-known, the Arizal took a good 2-3 hour nap. So here is the response, the proper response to that custom of the Arizal. The Arizal was able to tap into levels that we can't even comprehend. In fact, the Arizal told one of his Talmidim that what he was able to achieve from one nap spiritually, he wouldn't be able to achieve 80 years while being awake. Right? Sleeping is 1/60th of dreaming is 1/60th of prophecy. So the Arizal is at a very high level. That's the Arizal. There is a concept as well, halachic concept of sometimes you see people, they sleep less going into Shabbos because they're going to say, oh, I'll catch it all up on Shabbos. On the contrary, person should be doing the opposite. That's what we see from all of these sources. It's really a bash on what a lot of people do. Shabbos is not a time to just sleep the entire time. The Svarim discuss also the importance of not overeating on Shabbos. The Eli Rabba in Sim Kufain says that person could violate 3 negative commandments by overeating even on Shabbos. Bal Tishachsu, Pein Tishchach, and Hishamalach. Those 3, if he overeats. Someone who overeats will become sleepy, like we saw in the story before, which will cause Bittul Torah, which is an issue. Regarding the nap, is it an obligation to take a short nap on Erev Shabbos? No. A person could fulfill the mitzvah of sleeping on Shabbos by going to sleep a little bit earlier at night. It doesn't have to be specifically during the afternoon. In fact, the Chesed Alafim says that someone who is able to should force himself not to sleep during the day on Shabbos. However, many do relate this custom of napping in the afternoon, and some just napped on a chair. Whatever it is. There is another Mishnah Berurah that says when you're napping, you shouldn't say I'm napping, so that'll have more strength for after Shabbos. So that's the discussion with napping on Shabbos. What about learning Torah in general? The Torah over there discusses learning Koivin Medrash, the importance of learning on Shabbos, utilizing the time. We'll put that on the side for now. One thing that's very interesting about learning, and people don't realize this, is that it's this very auspicious and special time to learn Torah on Shabbos. The Shitu Mikubetzes on the Gemara and Beitz on Tezayin, commenting on the Neshama Yisera, that extra soul that we have, he says it's a Siyata Deshmaya in our Limud Torah. It's a special divine assistance that we get when we learn on Shabbos. Here's a pretty well-known idea, but this is an elaboration which I don't think anyone discusses. The Ben Ish Chai says that learning Torah on Shabbos is 1,000 times better than learning during the week. And the angels that we create through our learning are stronger and better angels than the ones on Shabbos. That's already an idea, but here's a lesser known idea. The Vilna Gaon in Shnos Eliyahu says that every single word of Torah is an independent mitzvah in and of itself. The Chafetz Chaim says that a person can learn 200 words in 1 minute. Let's do a little bit of math. So we have, it's 1,000 times better to learn Torah on Shabbos. We have 200 words per minute. Consequently, a person would rack in 200,000 mitzvahs per minute on Shabbos by learning. Multiply that by 60, which is an hour. We're talking about 12 million mitzvahs per hour. Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Any one of those 12 million mitzvahs would be better than other mitzvahs. So we're talking about if a person sits and learns on Shabbos for 1 hour without interruption, 12 million mitzvahs. Hold on, here's the part where no one else talks about. Rav Chaim Volozhin says that when a person learns with happiness in 1 hour, it's better than he learned when he wasn't happy for more hours. Consequently, if a person sits down and learns for 60 minutes on Shabbos happily, he's getting around 36 million mitzvahs. And we wonder why so many people don't learn on Shabbos. Because the Yetzer Hara knows what he's doing. He doesn't want to get us to learn. And if he can't completely not get us to learn, at least qualitatively or quantitatively, reduce the amount of time that we learn. Rav Shach says that someone who doesn't learn on Eriv Shabbos or Shabbos, he's basically wasting a third of his life down the drain. These are incredible times to take advantage of that a lot of times is a special hisrashlis, especially in yeshivas. There's people, they get more lax and lazy already before Friday. And there's a lot more to elaborate on this, but it's a very important idea. What should we learn? Well, what should a person learn in general is a major discussion, which takes a tremendous amount of time to learn about also and to discuss. But there's an interesting Yabet, and this ties into the fellow who said you shouldn't learn on Shabbos. The Yabet says that a person should not learn in depth on Shabbos. He shouldn't learn Be'in. And someone who does so, according to the Yabet, he violated Shabbos. He desecrated Shabbos. That's what the Yabes said, because you're taking away from your own Shabbos. Similarly, not just the Yabes, but the Ksav, Sofer, and Shiles and Chuvas says that a Talmud Chacham who learns Be'in is going to be preoccupied with his learning, and he won't be able to focus on his Suda properly. However, Chidah and many others, Shiles and Chuvas, Torah Lishma, quotes Yerushalmi that says that it was the norm for people to learn in depth on Shabbos, so a person really should learn what he enjoys. Lastly, there is an idea which became famous from the Mishnah Berurah and Siman Reish Sadi that there's an Eliyah Rabbah that says that there's an obligation to come up with a chidush on Shabbos. They all quote this, a new Torah idea, a new Torah insight, like the Zohar says. So many people will say, I can't do that. I never create chidushim. When a person learns in depth, you'll come up with some points that no one else just came up with before because you did a deep dive on a topic that no one else researched thoroughly. But anyways, on Motzei Shabbos, this Neshama Yisrael, this extra soul that we have ascends, and they're going to ask, what's your chiddush? What's your insight that you came up with on Shabbos? So it's not going to say how much chalent did you have, what type of meat was in the chalent, etc. This is what it's going to ask. This is what a Neshama Yisrael yearns for. Someone who isn't able to create this insight, the Mishnah Berurah says, learn something new that you didn't learn yet. So that part is already known. This is the lesser known idea, and this is something to really ponder. The Yesod V'Shorish HaAvoda in Shar Ches Perek Yud Beis says that someone who thinks of one way to improve in serving Hashem, or he accepts on himself a new good act, something good to do, it's considered as if a person created a chiddush, and it's a tremendous idea to come up with a good act. So basically, in summary and a brief recap of what we just did, we learned about really what the essence is of Shabbos, that the food, the physicalities, the napping, or the sleeping is a means to an end to really get to Torah. We learned about the importance of napping Eriv Shabbos, and on Shabbos in general, perhaps some ideas that people weren't aware of. The importance of learning on Shabbos, what we should learn, potentially not in depth, learn what you enjoy, and the importance of coming up with a insight. This is basically 15 minutes of many, many hours of research and chaburas that I gave here at 9:15 in the morning, all bundled together with leaving out some other details of what comes up in Siman Reish Sadi, in particular the drasha. What should the topic of the drasha be about? Surprise, surprise. It might need to be about halacha, but that's another time in and of itself. Why isn't it halacha based in most places nowadays? and some other topics. But this is a brief summary. So I hope everyone enjoyed. Rabbi Chanan ben Akash Amar Rotza Kodesh Baruch Hu Sach Tzitzel Lefichi Hirlim Torah Mitzvah Shem Adonai Chafetz Man Tzidkol Adonai Chafetz Man Tzidkol Yagdil Torah V'Yadir.